What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, we are going over Mana as its price has absolutely blown through resistance straight up to our technical target at $4.30. Now, of course, after a move of that nature, people are getting excited, people are feeling FOMO, and they're asking the question, is it too late to buy or should I buy now? And so, of course, that's my job here, is to tell you guys my thoughts on if I think it's too late, if I think you should be buying now, and if not, what you need to be looking for. So, of course, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get straight into it. So before we even get into this, one thing that I want to say is for those of you who've caught my last two videos and you've not been getting in and you've not been trusting your technical analysis and you've not been trusting your overall charts, you got to start to have a little bit more faith in the fundamentals, okay? And the reason I say that is because in the last video, I gave you guys this technical target right here, okay? Now listen to how I described it because it was almost as clear as day as to where we would see the price go over the next 24 hours. Let's go ahead and let's give this a quick listen. Breakout target, a technical target, all the way up to $4.30. So what that means is that at the point in which we see the breakout of our inverse head and shoulders line, and we get 4-hour closes outside above 350, be looking for that massive move to the upside. And so what you can see is we called this almost exactly spot on. I gave you guys $4.30 and went up to $4.33. And so that's why I say you can't let FOMO be the only reason you buy things. You can't buy things after you see them making moves. You got to look for your confirmations. You got to look for your breakouts and just trust your technical abilities, okay? These things are not made up. Charting is going to be basically, in my opinion, the psychology of investors. So once we clear these levels, there's an open field to some of these breakout targets. And that's why you just simply have to trust this and stop waiting till it hits a top for yourself to start asking, well, should I get in now? I mean, even on the Patreon, we got in on this thing at $3.24, which at the time felt so high. But then you look back at it now and you see that $3.24 was way back here. I mean, that's 23%, at one point 33% gains in just 48 hours, okay? And so you got to stop being, you got to stop wanting to buy things after they start to hit all-time highs. Okay, that's just the point of that. But with that being said, guys, whenever we look at, Mana right now, what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing a continuation of a very similar pattern. We see the big move, we see the retracement, we see the continuation to the retracement. That's kind of how this thing has been working. And so what that means for us is we need to start to gauge, how are we looking technically? Does it seem as if it can continue to the top side, or are we starting to lose momentum? So let's go ahead, let's clear off these charts here, and let's take a look at this thing. So in terms of where we put in this high, what we know is that that was a massive breakout target from this inverse head and shoulders, as we talked about. So of course you take the distance from your neckline down to the top of your head, and that gave us the breakout target all the way up to $4.30. Well, what we know is that typically once we will reach a price target or a breakout target, we will see these retracements. That's generally going to happen because so many people are taking profits at these levels that are trading this, this massively bullish pattern. Now, one thing we can see, though, is that there are more patterns still forming on the charts. This is not the only pattern in which we were seeing. Now, one thing that we were seeing forming was going to be as well this cup and handle pattern. So what that means for us is that we have this very, very large breakout target sitting somewhere. Let's go ahead and let's just take our distance here. I mean, realistically, we could still be looking at a breakout upwards of around $5 on this big continuation. And that just so happens to line up almost directly with our all-time high. So although we are still seeing some of these short-term patterns playing out, we still have these long-term patterns that have not had their price target met. So immediately my response to that question of if it's too late is no. In the long term, it does seem as if there is still potential for this thing to run. Does that mean that in the short term, it won't retrace back to $3 or $3.50? No, it definitely could do so. But over the long term, from a technical perspective, there is still room to the upside. Now, one reason that we can support this as well is kind of looking at our daily charts. We can see here that we have avoided all bearish crosses. We just recently started to continue our green bar patterns to the top. And with all of that with all that being said, it does seem as if since we avoided that bear cross, that we could be looking at a continuation to the top side without having any of this negative bearish momentum. One thing we can also see is that if we go ahead and we pull up our RSI here, relative strength index, what we can see is that we are working on, getting rid of some of this bearish divergence. Now, what bearish divergence is going to be simply is whenever on your price, you are setting some higher highs. So for example, you set a high, you set a higher high, but imagine if on our RSI, we were setting a high and a lower high. For a little while, we were seeing bearish divergence off of this move, in which we were seeing a higher high trying to be put in here, or a lower high, sorry, being trying to be put in here, which would have said that this big run up was not healthy. But what you can see is that we are correcting this. We put in the higher high here as we are putting in a higher high here. But the big goal right now is to go up and clear this level on the RSI. Now, that will be extremely difficult considering it's at nearly 95 on the RSI. And that's just due to it being the first big massive run that Mana's had. But optimally speaking, if we could get as close as possible to that level as we continue upwards, I think that would limit the amount of bearish momentum that would push the price back down when it does eventually see a bigger retracement, okay? But overall, in the short term, it does show that we are correcting some short-term bearish divergence, which just goes to say that Mana's price definitely can continue to the top side in the long term. Now, that's not even factoring in any of the fundamental strengths that they have. With the metaverse growing, I'm just simply talking technicals. Now, one thing that we can see as well is that Mana typically has a tendency to reach its Fibonacci 1.618 level. So what we can see is based off of this swing high that we set on November 6th down to the low that was set on November 11th, the price came up and retraced, but eventually reached a 1.618. Well, one thing we can see is that based off of this previous move here, if we draw our Fibonacci, what happens is that we've not yet reached that 4.53, okay? That 1.618 fib extension at $4.53 has not been reached yet. So in the short term, as long as we do continue to find some support at roughly around $3.84, I do believe it still has some room to run from here. Another possible, let's go here. Maybe another 14%. I definitely think that is within the realm of possibility, but do consider the fact that we did just reach a short-term price target at 430, so that definitely could trigger the ultimate pullback down to some of our key levels. So all of this to say that it does seem to me as if there is more upside potential for Mana. It does not seem like it's too late if you are willing to sit through some type of possible correction. But personally speaking, if I would be buying at this exact moment, my answer would be no. Now, the reason is what we've been seeing from Mana recently has been big moves to the upside, pullbacks, real nice pullbacks, establishments of structure, breakouts that lead to another pullback. And so what I would be doing is doing exactly what we did back here. Waiting for the structure to form. Once that structure forms, even if it goes up to $5, I would still rather wait for the structure to form, watch for that retracement, and as structure breaks, then that's when I'm getting in. So what I would be looking for in terms of structure formation is first and foremost a return to some of our EMAs. If we go out to the daily charts, one thing you can see is that Mana has been coming back down to these key levels. Now let's go ahead and let's get the 20 simple moving average pulled up. So what you can see is that our 20 simple moving average has been where we come back down in this rough region to find some support throughout this big move to the upside. Well, now considering the fact that we are extended outside of our daily Bollinger Bands, there is a strong likelihood of us resorting back to our moving average, as a Bollinger Band is simply just 2 standard deviations away from a moving average. What that means is that a price of a crypto will usually only see 2 standard deviations away from a moving average before going back to it and retesting it. And considering the fact that we've already seen 2 standard deviations by it pushing outside the Bollinger Band, that means to me that eventually we are going to see it come back down and retrace. And at that point, as we start to get closer and closer to this 20 simple moving average, that is when I would be trying to get in. That is when I would be looking for structural formation. Now, it seems as if the structural formation recently has been these descending wedges, but of course we will kind of gauge that as time does go on. Now, in the short term, it does seem as if we have some type of, let's go to the hourly charts. It does seem as if we have some type of short-term descending wedge forming here. So boom, if we see the breakout in the short term, we may see that continuous push back up to 450. But if you're looking at this thing from more of a long-term perspective, even if you do buy on this breakout, I would be looking to maybe even take profits at $4.50, expecting that the larger retracement is not far away. So in the short term, it seems as if there could be another move to the top side. In the midterm, I would be waiting for a larger correction, a larger retracement, now that we're starting to reach some of our Fibonacci retracement levels. And that's just how I would play this. So no, it's not too late to buy. But if you are buying right now, you do need to understand that you are at extreme risk of a pullback happening. And as that pullback does happen, you need to make sure that you have the emotional durability to sit through it, wait for the breakout, and maybe even dollar cost average or increase your position as it does start to work its way to the top side, even if it does retrace another 20%. So overall, that's my video for today, guys. You know, buying right here is so risky, and it's so much more of a risk than buying back at $3.51 when we got in, or $3.23 when we got in, but there is still potential to the upside. You just need to know the risk that you are putting yourself out if you are accumulating there. So with that being said, definitely do stay tuned. I'm going to keep you guys as up to date as possible. Mana may become one of those daily cryptos that we cover, especially with how much it moves. If you would like that, of course, do let me know by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. And if you do want access to every trade that I make, my portfolios, and much more, go down to the link in the description. Go check out the Patreon because that's where that's all accessible. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.